This dude had $5 million NIL contract. He's the number one ranked quarterback in the transfer portal. He had a first round NFL grade, and right now he has nothing. No college, no NFL, nowhere to play in 2026. And the crazy thing is, unfortunately, he did it to himself. In this episode, we're gonna talk about the whole story of what happened with Brendan Sorsby. Just kind of a recap of what happened from start to finish, where he goes from here, what the repercussions are, what the NCAA decided, how this kind of whole went about, and is he going to be able to play the NFL at any point in the future? Let's jump right into it. I'm your host, John Miller Altman with Tavern Talk. Like, subscribe, and hit the notifications and follow us on our social media platforms, Tavern Talk. Let's jump right into it. So, who is Brendan Sorsby? Obviously, you've probably watched a couple of our shows and other people around the internet. Brendan Sorsby is the Texas Tech quarterback, like we've talked about multiple times. Transferred in for about $4 to $5 million in NIL money. Transferred from Cincinnati. Texas Tech paid him a lot of money to come over there, and after they kind of struggled at quarterback play last season, he's supposed to be the savior. So he comes in, and he's only there a couple months, and then the story breaks, obviously, of him gambling uh, over $80,000 to $90,000 on multiple different teams, over 40 bets placed. Some of them were on his own team at Indiana. So it basically happens is an investigation happens with the NCAA, and obviously the NCAA over the past 50 years, 60 years has been extremely, extremely, extremely hard on people that gamble. You cannot gamble on your own team, especially, or gamble in general, and play college athletics or any athletics in general. It's obviously a conflict of interest and can result in people, taking advantage of the system and betting on games and throwing games and that sort of thing. So it's something that should never happen in sports. So he did it, and the NCAA ruled him ineligible. And so he was not going to be able to play in the 2026 football season for Texas Tech. Well, the Texas Tech or Brendan Sorsby sued the NCAA, and then they, like I said, they ruled him ineligible to play. Well, then Texas Tech got a judge to have an injunction, or Brendan Sorsby got a judge to have an injunction, so he was going to be allowed to play in 2026. A bunch of ginormous black backlash came out of it from me and from everybody in college football. He should not have been ruled eligible to play. You can't gamble on your own team or gamble in general and play, because that's going to result in people giving you offers to throw games or not play as well. Just it destroys the integrity of the game in general. And just that's not what college football, that's not what sports is about, especially college football. Uh, it was, it's turned into a money game the last couple of years, but this is something that should never be allowed in college athletics, especially. So he was ruled eligible to play. The media, including me, went into an absolute frenzy. People were losing their absolute minds, saying this is ridiculous. You know, other teams, Oklahoma, Nebraska and Georgia, athletic directors said they were not going to play them. There was other schools in the Big 12 that said they were not going to play them. Um, so this kind of really, really blew up in their face with other teams and conferences, their own conference, saying that they were going to boycott Texas Tech games and not play them, as well as other schools. Well, here's the thing. This happens, and Texas Tech releases like a YouTube video basically explaining how and why Brendan Sorsby is allowed to be eligible, which no one wants to hear that anyway. I mean, you got a judge that graduated from Texas Tech to allow him to have an injunction to be able to play. People are pissed at you. Why are you just spewing BS that no one wanted him to play except Texas Tech people? So I mean, it's just obvious like he shouldn't be allowed to play. And they released some YouTube video explaining why he should be allowed to play. Um, it was just crap. So they go through all this headache. Keep in mind, they've paid Texas Tech to get Brendan Sorsby paid $4 to $5 million in NIL. They stuck by him through this addiction, which is, a bad case, and we hope he gets through it. They stuck by him through the litigation, the lawsuit, and all the hectic stuff that went on. Well, then they released a YouTube video defending him. All this stuff is going on. Well, then he decides a couple days later, after a reaction from all this stuff happening, that he is not even going to enter or play this college football season. He's going to enter the NFL Supplemental Draft, which is kind of crazy because Texas Tech went through all this headache, all this media nightmare with coaches, athletic directors, fans, all pissed at Texas Tech and Brendan Sorsby. They went through all that to get nothing. All the money, all the hoopla, all the media attention, all the everything. They went through all that, and he decided he wasn't even going to play. That he was going to go to the NFL Supplemental Draft and go that direction. Why did he do that? Because what happened is people lost their minds, and I don't think Texas Tech and Brendan Sorsby expected the backlash that happened. I think that they expected a little bit of it. I don't think they expected that much of it. I don't think they expected athletic directors and coaches to be like, we're not even going to play you this year. So I think that kind of readjusted what the expectation was, and I think Brendan Sorsby did not want to be one of the most hated college football players of all time. So I think that's why he made that decision. Well, it comes out in the last 24 to 48 hours that the NFL says, you know what? We're not even going to hold an NFL supplemental draft this year. So, I mean, Brendan Sorsby went from getting $4 to $5 million, the number one transfer quarterback in the country, being on the top 5 team that won the playoffs last year, to now he doesn't have anywhere to play in 2026, NFL or college. So I don't think he can just go back to Texas Tech. So he's not going to have a home for the 2026 football season. If he wanted to play in the NFL, he would have to go to the CFL or somewhere else or train for the 2027 draft. So let's hop into, the talking points of the NFL. So what they had went through. So the deadline was June 22nd. The NFL has power to obviously decide if they're going to do the draft or not. The supplemental draft hasn't been a thing since 2023. So here's what the NFL provided with its reasons for not allowing Brendan Sorsby to enter the supplemental draft and not even have one in general. They didn't have, they basically said, this comes off as the NFL is setting an expectation that you can't gamble and play sports. So, or at football. So this has been going on for years now in the NFL. Multiple players have gambled on games and stuff and have seen significant repercussions. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Calvin Ridley had a couple incidents with that a couple years ago, was suspended a couple games. Excuse me if I'm mistaken on that, but I know if it is, I'm pretty sure it is him. But if it's not him, like I said, this has been an issue with the NFL and the NBA, and it's become more and more common of people gambling and gambling on their own team and that sort of thing. So the NFL has set an expectation that you cannot gamble, and this is basically a 1-year suspension for Brendan Sorsby. And I think that they want him to do, or everybody wants him to get better and overcome this addiction. But at the same time, you can't just have not any repercussions on, which is basically what college football is going to allow him to do because the NCAA doesn't have any power. So he doesn't have a whole lot of options right now. I commend the NFL for doing this. The NFL did the right thing for not allowing him to enter the supplemental draft because this shows what the NCAA does not have is they have some power. And if you break the rules and you don't do stuff the right way, then there are repercussions for that. And it's unfortunate that it's going to be he's going to be unavailable for the whole season. But when you make big decisions like that are not good, there has to be some sort of law and some sort of rules to prevent that from happening in the future with other people. So I like this by the NFL. They take this type of stuff extremely seriously because you don't want to lose the integrity of the game. Where does Brendan Sorsby go from here? He could go to the CFL or he could go to another pro league. Um, and could also he could work out for the year and continue to stay in shape and then enter the 2027 NFL draft, um, which could be a lot more competitive than this year's draft with Arch Manning, Dante Moore, Lenore Sellers, Trinidad Chambliss. It's going to be a more competitive draft in 2027 with quarterbacks. So if you're taking a year off, unless he goes and plays super well in the CFL or some other league, it could hurt him. So he doesn't really have a whole lot of options. He's going to be older with a bad reputation of gambling. He'll have to overcome and obviously show that he has overcame that problem. He's a really good quarterback. Here's the thing: this guy had a lot of potential. He still has the ability to go pro next year and do well, but this is the right thing about the NFL, and um, it would have been really bad if Brendan Sorsby was allowed to play college football this year. It would have just looked horrible from the NCAA standpoint, the integrity of the game standpoint, everything involved. You can't gamble and get a slap on the wrist with a 2-game suspension versus nobodies. When I mean nobodies, I mean cupcake teams that they were going to play the first 2 weeks. So that's what was going to, if he wanted to play, he was only going to get 2 games suspended versus teams that aren't any good. So you can't just gamble and get to play with no repercussions. So the NFL did the right thing, and they showed the NCAA what to do. But college football legislation needs to be put in place to back up the NCAA, and they need to make better decisions. The reason they don't have any power is because they made such horrible decisions in the past that no one's trusted them now. And unfortunately, we need them now. But now you can just sue and sue and sue in your hometown. So you get a judge that probably went to your school, an alumni, and they're going to rule in your favor 8 to 9 times out of 10. So you have a good player. This is what's happened over the last 2 weeks. It's been a wild story. I mean, this story just keeps on going, like we've talked about. Brendan Sorsby, like we've talked about throughout this episode, he gambles. He transfers over from Texas Tech. He gets in trouble for gambling. He's ruled ineligible. Then he gets an injunction. He's ruled eligible. Then he was going to be allowed to play college football. People lost their absolute minds. Athletic directors, fans, coaches all said that they were not for this, potentially petitioned to not even play Texas Tech. Then he goes, "Oh, I'm not. I'm going to enter the NFL supplemental draft." So Texas Tech went through all this whole thing for nothing, paid him $5 million, went through all the bad media publicity for him just to say, "I'm going to enter the NFL supplemental draft." Then the NFL comes out, like we've talked about, and says, "Oh, he's not going to be allowed to enter the NFL supplemental draft. We're not even going to have one." So this guy went from having it all, number one quarterback, transfer portal, getting paid a lot of money, first round grade, to now he's in a bit of a mess from a playing perspective. And that is all we have for today. See you next week. Follow us on our social media platforms: Tavern Talk, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. And we'll see you here next time. Let's go. Have a good day.